Go ahead.
Okay, should I start now?
You can go.
Holmes came out of the bar of gold, and we walked along together. At first he walked unsteadily, with a bent back, but after the first few streets he straightened up and laughed loudly. I suppose you think I've become an opium addict, Watson, he said. I was certainly surprised to find you in that place, I replied, and I was surprised to see you there. I came to find a friend, and I came to find an enemy. An enemy? Yes, Watson, one of my natural enemies, criminal. I am working on one of my cases. I fear that Mr. Neville St. Clair entered the bar of gold and that he will never come out of the place alive. There's a door at the back of the building that opens onto the river. I believe that many men have been murdered there and that their bodies have been thrown out through that door. If I had been recognized, the evil Indian sailor who owns the place would have murdered me too. I have used the bar of gold before for my own purposes, and I found often found useful clues there in the conversation of the opium addicts. The owner has sworn to have his revenge on me for it. Suddenly, Holmes whistled loudly. The carriage should be here by now, he said. We heard an answering whistle in the distance. Then we saw the yellow lamps of the carriage as it came near. Now, Watson, you will come with me, won't you? Said Holmes as he climbed in. If I could be of any use. Oh, a friend is always useful. And my room at the St. Clair's has two beds. At the St. Clair's? Yes, I am staying there whilst I work on the court case. Where is it then? B in Kent. It's a 7 mile drive. Come on.
Okay. Well, I don't,
Continue reading.
I'll do. We'll do page by page. So
Okay.
here we go. It's my turn now. So, but I don't know anything about your case. Of course you don't, but you soon will. Jump up here. All right, Harold, he said to the driver. We shan't need you. He handed the man a coin. Look out for me tomorrow about 7 o'clock. Good night. For the first part of our drive, Holmes was silent, and I waited patiently for him to begin. I have been wondering what I can say to the dear little woman tonight when she meets me at the door, he said at last. I'm talking about Miss St. Clair, of course. Neville St. Clair came to live near Lee 5 years ago. He took a large house and lived like a rich man. He gradually made friends in the neighborhood, and 2 years ago he married the daughter of a local farmer, by whom now he has two children. Neville St. Clair was a businessman in London. He used to leave home every morning and then catch the 5:14 train back from Cannon Street station each evening. If he's still alive, he's now 37 years old. He had no bad habits. He's a good husband and a father, and everybody likes him. He has debts of £88 at present, but his bank account contains £220. There's no reason, therefore, to think that he has any money troubles. Last Monday, he went into London rather earlier than usual. He said that he had two important pieces of business to do that day. He also promised to buy his little boy a box of toy bricks. Now, that same day, his wife happened to receive a telegram from the Aberdeen Shipping Company. This informed her that a valuable package, which she was expecting, had arrived at the company's offices in London. These offices are in Fresno Street, which is off Upper Swandon Street, where you found me tonight. Mrs. Sinclair had her lunch, caught a train to London, did some shopping, and then went to the shipping company's offices. When she came out at 4:35, she walked slowly along Upper Swandon Street, hoping to find a carriage. It was a very hot day, and she did not like the neighborhood at all. Suddenly, she heard a cry and saw her husband looking down at her from a window on the first floor of one of the houses. He seemed to be waving to her as if he wanted her to come up. The window was open and she had a clear view of his face. He looked very worried and nervous. She noticed that he had no collar or tie on, but he was wearing a dark coat like the ones he had put on that morning. Then, very suddenly, someone seemed to pull him back from the window. Mrs. St. Clair felt sure that something was seriously wrong. She saw that the entrance of the house was below ground level. This was the door of the Bar of Gold. She rushed down the steps and through the front door and tried to go up the stairs which led to the upper part of the house. But the owner, the Indian sailor I spoke of, ran downstairs and pushed her back. The Malayan servant helped him to push her out into the street. She rushed along Upper Swanland Street and into Fresno Street, where she fortunately found several policemen. They forced their way into the Bar of Gold and went upstairs to the room in which Mr. St. Clair had been last seen. There was no sign of him there. In fact, the only person in the upper part of the house was an ugly cripple who lived there. Both the Indian and this cripple swore that no one else had been in the first floor front room that afternoon. The police were beginning to believe that Mrs. St. Clair had been mistaken when suddenly she noticed a small wooden box on the table. Realizing what it contained, she tore the lid off and emptied out children's bricks. It was the toy that her husband had promised to bring home for the little boy. Of course, the rooms were now examined very carefully, and the police found signs of a terrible crime. The front room was an ordinary room with plain furniture and led into a small bedroom from which the river could be seen. Along the edge of the river, there's a narrow piece of ground which is dry at low tide. But, carry on.
which is covered at high tide by at least 4.5 feet of water. At that time of day, the river is at its highest point. There were drops of blood on the window and a few drops on the bedroom floor too. Behind a curtain in the front room, the police found all Neville St. Clair's clothes except his coat. His shoes, his socks, his hat, and his watch, everything was there. There were no signs of violence on any of the clothes, and Mr. St. Clair, alive or dead, was certainly not there. He seemed to have gone out the window. There was no other possibility. The Indian had often been in trouble with the police before, but as Mrs. St. Clair had seen him at the foot of the stairs only a few seconds after her husband's appearance at the window, he could not have been responsible for the murder. He said that he knew nothing about the clothes which had been found in the cripple's rooms. The cripple himself, whose name is Hugh Boone, must have been the last person to see Neville St. Clair. Boone is a well-known London beggar who always sits in Threadneedle Street near the Bank of England. He pretends to be a match seller, but there is always a dirty leather cap by his side into which people throw coins. I have watched him more than once, and I've been surprised at the very large amount of money that he receives in this way. His appearance, you see, is so unusual that no one could go past without noticing him. He has a pale face and long red hair and bright brown eyes. His upper lip is twisted as the result of an old accident, and he is famous for the answers to the jokes of all the businessmen who go past. Is it possible that a cripple could have murdered a healthy young man like Neville St. Clair? I asked. Hugh Boone's body is bent and his face is ugly, Holmes replied, but there is great strength in him. Cripples are often very strong, you know. When the police were searching him, they noticed some spots of blood on one of the arms of his shirt, but he showed them a cut on his finger and explained that the blood had come from there. He also said that he had been at the window not long before and that the blood on the floor and the window probably came from his fingertip. He refused to admit that he had ever seen Mr. St. Clair and swore that the presence of the clothes in the room was as much as a mystery to him as it was to the police. If Mrs. St. Clair said she had seen her husband at the window, she must have been dreaming, or else she was crazy. Boone was taken to the police station, still complaining loudly. When the water level in the river had gone down, the police looked for the body of Mr. St. Clair in the mud, but they only found his coat and every pocket was full of pennies and half pennies, 421 pennies and 270 half pennies. It was not surprising that the coat had not been carried away by the tide, but possibly the body itself had been swept away. Perhaps Boone pushed St. Clair through the window and then decided to get rid of the clothing, which might give clues to the police. But he needed to be sure that the clothes would sink, so he went to the hiding place where he kept the money he earned in Threadneedle Street and began by filling the pockets of the coat and throwing it out. He would have done the same with the rest of the clothing, but just then he heard the police coming up the stairs and he quickly closed the window. Boone had Boone has been a professional beggar for many years, but he had never been in any serious trouble with the police. He seems to live very quietly and harmlessly. I have to find out what Neville St. Clair was doing in that house, what happened to him whilst he was there, where is he now, and what Boone's involvement was in his disappearance. The problem seemed to be an easy one at first, but now I don't think it is so easy. Do you see that light among the trees? That is the St. Clair's house. Beside that lamp, an anxious woman is sitting listening, probably for the sound of our horse. We
Okay,
drove
stop there.
through some.
Stop there. Okay. So, um, what I'd like you to do,
Yeah,
um, uh, is remember we said that after every story, if you go to the end of the book, I think page 114, there are questions on the stories.
yeah,
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is finish the story. Okay, you've got enough time. Are you doing any exams this week or next?
not this week. No, no.
What about next week?
Yes, I will be doing exams.
Okay, what kind of exams are you doing, bro?
The only confirmed one that I know is that English is on Thursday, I think.
Okay, and what do you think the main topic is going to be?
It's going to be about Sherlock Holmes.
Is it okay? Good. So what I'd like you to do is have a read of this story, The Man with the Twisted Lip, and at the end of the book, what you'll find is questions. Okay, sample questions. Okay,
Okay,
we go to the end of the book. Here, the activities page. Um, so the man with the twisted lip. So here, page 119 are the questions for the man with the twisted lip. Okay. So what I'd like
okay,
you to do is make your way through those. Okay. So it's on the PDF side, it's page 119, 120, but on the written page, it's 111 and 112. Okay.
okay,
So read your way through the story very slowly. Look at the topics, the main points, and then answer these questions. Like, how does
okay.
that
Yeah, well,
how does that feel?
that feels good. That sounds nice.
Okay, then there you go. Like, take your time, finish the story. What we'll do is, okay, the thing is, because you guys have exams next week and it's the June exams, I can imagine it's the normal end of year exams, right?
Yeah,
What we're gonna do is, it's impossible for us to make do a lot of work in a short time. All we'll do is we'll gradually just do one day a week of story. So we'll do like Sherlock Holmes. We might do Oliver Twist and stuff like that, and
okay,
do I hate it more, and then work on those. But the rest of the days we're just gonna have our normal lessons and we're gonna try work towards what you guys are gonna be doing in autumn next year. This year, okay?
okay.
And so do you do past papers as well at school?
Past papers, what do you mean?
Okay, past papers are the past year 9 English exams from last year, the year before, the year before that. So they keep them somewhere, and the teacher kind of gives them to you to give you an idea of how the exam's going to be.
Oh, I don't think they've done that, no.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try find a couple of them for you,
Okay.
year nine ones, and I'll try to send them through to you so that you can actually have a look at them over the weekend.
Okay,
But
thank you.
you're welcome, bro. I hope you're feeling better. Dila,
Thank you.
apparently you guys have relatives over,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
tomorrow will be usual time, inshallah. We'll
Inshallah.
try start 9 on the dot, so that at least you guys are there now. It's 11, 10, 9:30 in the evening. We'll try to finish
Hmm.
this, okay?
Okay.
So you know what pages the activities are on.
Yeah, yeah.
Think you can do them by tomorrow,
By tomorrow,
or do you want to
um,
by Thursday? Let's just say that.
yeah, I think by Thursday. Thank you.
Okay, finish the story by yourself. And then by Thursday, I'd like the answers to the questions here. Tomorrow's Tuesday. It was history that you were on, right?
Yep.
We'll do some history tomorrow, dear. Have a good night. And
You too.
to
Very cool, man.